Here's one of our favorites, Lance Storm.
Without question. And I loved the presentation of Dawn Marie with Lance Storm. What's great about Lance Storm is in a promotion where, you know, there's so much blood and guts. There's so many crazy high spots. There's tables, there's ladders, there's chairs. Oh my. Lance Storm comes in and goes a different way. And the fans really, really appreciate it because at the time, you know, what really was hardcore or extreme was the love of wrestling from the fans. So you could come in and just put on in-ring traditional wrestling clinics, but if you were really good, that was sufficient. You didn't have to do all the other stuff, but we know how to play along, of course. And the fans are chanting, show your tits, which is, really what you do anytime you're, in a group of wrestling fans in Chicago and a woman enters the room. Of course, I'm kidding. Starrcast and All Out and All In, it's a different time, but, oh, and look who it is. Jerry Lynn, the whole effing show. He's really on the come up here in 1999. He's started his feud with Rob Van Dam, had a series of matches that have really helped put him on the map. There's Ronnie Lang, Starrcast security, AEW security. Look over in the corner. There's Sam. Man, you forget how long Atlas Security's been around, huh?
Wow. They have been around, and there's every bit as intimidating looking now as they were back then.
Yeah. The all black suit with the black turtleneck, no matter what time of year it is, that, especially if you're what, 3.5 bills, that's going to get everybody's attention.
You know, when I watch these shows, Conrad, I've said this many times. I certainly love them and I enjoy what they do. Let me say something about Lance Storm. First of all, I think him being a technical wrestler and being something different than the usual hardcore stuff, to me, is brilliant.
It really works. And it gives him something to sort of rebel against and sort of poop on the fans for. And so, especially when, in this pairing of him and Dawn Marie is genius because she really loves the attention and wants to be the star. It just wants everyone's approval. And when the fans are really chanting for her and she's scantily clad, she's just absolutely loving it. But he's a little annoyed, like, hey, that's not why she's with me. And I thought that was good stuff. And by the way, Lance Storm looks like if you were to build a wrestler, he looks like what you would make. I mean, he's in tremendous shape, excellent presentation. And then here's Jerry Lynn, very similar. He's coming to us with a background and someone, you know, from the WCW days as Mr. JL. He's obviously been, you know, up north in Global and having a tremendous series of matches with Sean Waltman, but now he's finally getting the respect of the fans because of his feud with Rob Van Dam. And Rob Van Dam really helped sort of make him to this ECW crowd. Even if they were a smart crowd and respected his background, it wasn't until his feud with Rob Van Dam that ECW fans were like, oh, this guy could be like next level good. And Lance Storm, you know, people have started to figure that out about as well. Of course, he's worked a lot of shows across the US and across Canada, but probably his first big push, I guess we'll call it, on the map was with Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain. And you and I haven't spent a lot of time talking about Smoky Mountain. Did you ever see any Smoky Mountain?
No, I never did. Never saw any. I didn't watch other wrestling promotions. And you know, that's, I wanted to say this, when I started talking about Lance Storm. When I watch these shows and I love watching them, to me, it's like stepping into an alternate universe because all this was happening and all this good shit was going on at that time in 1999. And I was unaware.
Right.
So now I go back and I look at this stuff and I think, wow, what the fuck was I doing? And I should have been, well, the good news is I'm watching it now and I'm enjoying it now. And they got great performers and they got a lot of beautiful women and they got rabid fans. And you combine all that, can't go wrong, can you?
No, you cannot.
Yeah, right.
You want to, you know, since you got all this newfound fame and fortune, you want to try to get in the spirit of things here a little bit and do some commentary on a wrestling match?
Well, I don't know if I should or not. I may have to charge you for it if I do.
Well, let me tell you, this got second place in the best match poll amongst the Wrestling Observer readers. There was only 2 matches that were even mentioned, though. Taz, Tanaka, and Mike Awesome, and they got 58 votes. Jerry Lynn and Lance Storm got 8 votes, and that's it. So you talk about a lot of high praise here.
Mm-hmm.
There it is for this main event. We've got nearly a full house here. I guess maybe it is a full house. It's the largest gate and crowd in company history. There's nearly 6,000 fans here, which I know you would say, oh, who cares? Only 6,000. That was a big deal for ECW here.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're talking to Tony Schiavone, not Bruce Pritchard. Okay.
Well, cause you would be like, oh, around this time we were selling out the Georgia Dome. Well, they paid $208,000 here, and it's the first time ECW has been, as Meltzer would say, in that money stratosphere. And he says a lot of this is because it's the first pay-per-view available in Canada. So it's got more, eyeballs and opportunities for eyeballs than any other show in their company history. And they've just started on TNN. So they've got, more exposure there.
Yeah. That was my question. They were on TNN. But before that, how many clearances do they have? I mean, that was back in the day. That's how you got your product over. You had clearances and you went in all these markets with TV shows.
Well, what they were doing is they were buying time on syndication, and it was usually, starting no earlier than 10 PM, but usually somewhere between like midnight or 11 and 2 AM.
Right.
In various markets. I think in my market, I saw them, not in my market. I had a satellite, but they came on the Sunshine Network at like 1 AM or something like that. Right.
You had to put something like this on late at night.
Yes. Well, I don't think you had to put the content on. You got to appreciate these guys. Started to say Eric Bischoff. Paul Heyman is writing a check every week for these tapes to be aired. So if you're wanting to air in prime time, guess what? That costs more.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was on late because it was easier to air maybe questionable content, although I appreciate that sentiment. I think it's on late because it's just cheaper. Like here in my local market, if I was to say, hey, I want to buy, a half hour of time. And of course these were hour shows, but I'm just saying, for instance, if I wanted to buy a half hour and I wanted it to be, Thursday nights at 8 PM, well, good luck. That's going to be a 5-figure investment, no matter what. Substantial money, even here in just Huntsville, Alabama. However, if you were to say, hey, I want a half hour at, a Friday night at 2 AM. So technically that's Saturday morning. I could get on our biggest local station and they'd be like, oh, cool. Can you give us like $500? So it's like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. So the feasibility when you're trying to say, hey, we need to sort of blanket North America, which if you go back a generation, that's how the WWF first really rose to prominence, as they went around and made deals at all these different television stations that had existing opportunities with other promotions. And then just offered to pay more. And so, whereas Vince McMahon was coming in trying to say, hey, I'll pay you more, Paul Heyman, because of budget, was coming in saying, hey, I need to pay as little as possible. And as a result, he got a lot of middle of the night time slots.
Great. Wow. What a drop kick by Lance Storm. God, he could do so many great things.
Is it a wonder that he went on to be a tremendous trainer?
Yeah. No surprise there.
Meltzer would say Storm is one of the best pure athletes in wrestling and his high spots are great, but going this long showed his weaknesses too much. In particular, his chops, which he used a lot to do a chop fest spots with Lynn, are even worse than his punches. He also does missed moves like clotheslines as part of his lengthy high spots that look bad. And there is an air of over choreography and mechanicalness to his lengthy high spots, as opposed to the smoothness that the top Mexicans do the same type of thing. But the actual wrestling was incredible.
Wow. He's kind of being hard on him there a little bit.
No, he's being very complimentary, but he is being, he's probably giving what he believes to be honest feedback. And I think they've gone on to be really good friends in real life. So no surprise, but fans are chanting here some stuff that I think even would take you aback. Like, and Dawn Marie, she's a crack whore.
Really?
And, Cyrus would say, no, she's a good girl. And Joey Styles is going to do lots of saline and fake boob references during the show. And
that's kind of a very, very inventive chant. She's a crack whore. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I wouldn't say that too loud around the house here, because Lois would say, stop that. And she would, well, she's very sensitive to shit like that.
what about calling other women crack whores?
Yes, about saying bad things about other women. And that's why I'm always trying to be complimentary of women on this show. I mean,
Wait, hang on. So just so I'm clear, you can motherfuck dudes all day long. She doesn't care. But if you say something rude about a woman,
right. Yeah. That's no go with her.
That's sexist.
That's just the way it is around the house.
Well, you ought to tell her, the game done changed, woman.
That's right.
Get in that kitchen, rattle me some pots and pans.
You crack whore.
I wouldn't say that. Maybe let's not do that. On second thought, I think she's on to something. Let's just get rid of it.
Okay.
I was trying to defend it. I can no longer do that. She's right. Yeah. I apologize. Just hearing you say it made me change my mind rather fast.
I probably took a little bit too far there, don't you think? I went one, and that's what I'm guilty of doing sometime. Someone had a sign that said, "We miss Sandman," and they got it pulled away from them. Did you see that?
Yeah. Well, everybody misses Sandman.
Is this when he was with us as hardcore hack?
Yeah.
Just not the same.
No. I mean, listen, can you imagine how fired WCW would have been for one segment if you guys would have licensed the Metallica song and he came out with his traditional entrance? Dude, people would have went nuts for that.
Yeah, I would have gone nuts for it. And again, I've told the story many times to show you how out of touch I was with ECW when Howard Core Hack, I didn't know who he was.
Core Hack? Who was Howard Core Hack?
Hardcore Hack.
Boy, I tell you what, if they're going to get a return on their investment, you got to start working on your enunciation.
Okay, I will. Hardcore Hack. How's that sound?
Well, it sounds like you have a speech impediment you're trying to overcome now.
Missile drop kick from Jerry Lynn. Oh, got a 2 count that time.
Hey, so Sandman, I do want to mention he gets released in late September. Bill Bush cuts him in a cost cutting measure, so fans are going to get their wish. I think he pops back up in a surprise return, and people just lose their shit
during the show.
No, not here.
Okay, damn.
It was I do wish I could show you that with the original sound, because they did one of those deals that was sort of the way they did things in ECW. Whenever there was a surprise or a return, they would just turn off all the lights. And then when the lights turned back on, there was this, everybody was ready, like, oh, something big's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so they did that with Sandman, but instead of him being in the ring, cause he still has to do his entrance, he was like higher up. And when the lights come back up and the, spotlight hit him, and immediately the music starts, like the camera, the floor, the bleachers, everything starts shaking because people were losing their mind that he's back.
Again, that goes back to it's probably an overused term, but I'm going to use it. The creative genius that was Paul Heyman. I mean, he was.
No doubt. Still is.
Yes. And still making a great living. Look at that bridge suplex. Wow. See, fans are into this. There are no tables or no chairs. Look at them standing up. So this is the first match, and they always say, let's start it out hot, man, and they are. How about that super kick? There's something else that I think is very underrated about ECW.
Okay.
And that's the camera work. I think the camera work here is awesome.
I appreciate you saying that, because you know what? It's well done. And I think that I think WWE sort of took what they did well and then made it shittier.
Yes.
You know, because like ECW, I think was really some of the first camera work to get the interesting angles and more movement. I feel like before them, wrestling camera work was a lot of times just sort of static. I'm going to take this shot and I'm just going to, it was shot very professionally, but with a very little sort of creative influence. And now, you know, whenever you watch WWE, they want, especially since they went HD, any sort of chance for impact, they do a cutaway to a different view. And as people are like swinging a chair, the cameramen are trained to just follow like every swing. Don't just show you the action, but move your camera with the chair. And, you know, I'm sure a certain segment of fans enjoy it, but I think ECW was just enough of that without it being too much. And I think WWE is probably a little too much right now.
Yeah. They knew, see, just coming in and you mentioned camera movement. And there's one of the cameramen there is a guy named Charlie, and Charlie works for MLW now.
Yeah. That's the same guy.
Yeah. Same guy. He's been doing it forever, man. And I've talked to him about the days back in the glory days of ECW with all the tables and the chairs and the crazy spots, how did he stay out of harm's way? And he always said it really wasn't easy to do that, because you got to try to get in involved in the action and also protect your equipment and protect yourself as well. So listen, these guys swinging these chairs and shit, it's dangerous stuff, but it's dangerous being there at ringside. Now, of course, Bill Apter is at ringside and they hit him with a chair. It wouldn't hurt him in the head at all. But for other guys who try to get in close shots.
Why are you saying it wouldn't hurt him at all?
Well, he's hard-headed. I mean, look, he's got a hard noggin.
I think this is,
you know that you tell Bill Apter something and it's like he doesn't listen to you. You tell Bill Apter, say, Bill, we want you there at 3:00. And between the time you tell him 3:00 and 3:00, he'll call you 100 times. And say, what was that time again? And it's not old age, just he's hard-headed.
Well, I can't argue anything you're saying. You've nailed it.
He's just hard-headed. So it wouldn't have hurt him, but it really, for the cameraman, it would have been some doing a lot of dancing. Look how the camera moved over to the left, walks in. Yeah, it's good stuff. So they were ahead of their time. And not only that, the stuff that they were doing back then, I've said this many times, it stood the test of time. The fan reaction and the fan involvement is more here than any other sport or any other wrestling company. And now it's that way on a mainstream level, really. So yeah, man, let's do it. Come on. Do me we've seen some great spots here. And I think I have to say, I have to agree with Meltzer on one thing here, is that, the length of this match kind of wearing him down.
Too long, you think?
Yeah, I think so.
They're going to go 16 minutes, 38 seconds. It gets 3.25 stars. And, yeah.
See, I'm always in favor of all matches going a max of 15.
All matches?
Mm-hmm. Unless you got something, one big storyline. But I think sometimes that kids can just go too long.
You grew up on Ric Flair wrestling Broadways.
Right.
And now you're advocating 15.
I'm advocating 15 because there are not that many Ric Flairs and Ricky Steamboats out there. There's some. I mean, how many?
I think I understand what you're saying, and that you're saying, sort of less is more.
Right.
However, I do think, you can, a 20-minute, that extra 5 minutes sometimes makes a lot of difference.
Right. I agree. But if the guys can perform, but sometimes you get to that 20-minute mark and they're doing things that you've seen already.
But you're right in that it needs to, if you're going to go longer, maybe this is what you're trying to say. Let me take a stab at it. Maybe the gimmick is, let me try to translate for Tony.
Well, you're translating. I need you with me everywhere.
if there is a storyline issue the fans can get excited about and sink their teeth into, you can go longer than 15. But if you're just gonna have a really good match, an entertaining match, cold with no backstory,
right?
15 is probably the limit.
Yeah. Thank you for translating. You are right. Fans are loving this. I don't necessarily love this though.
What?
Well, I don't. I love I get it. I love seeing women, as you know, but that was such a very good spot, and they were cheering the guys. But it's as if she's trying. Well, you mentioned this before. Now she's drawn the attention to herself.
Well, that's sort of her gimmick,
right? This taping of Jerry Lynn's ribs, was that a shoot?
No.
Okay. Was the match over there? Did we miss the finish?
Oh my God. Yes, that was the finish. And you were like, she's trying to get herself over. Like, well, the match is over. It was a pin with a 3/4 Nelson cradle.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
I was talking about, well, sometimes you miss the finish and sometimes the finish is not important. What's that thing on Don Callis's forehead anyway?
It's like a jewel. He's like a cult leader, you see.
Oh, Jesus. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that what cult leaders do? Put a jewel on their head?
What? Have you ever been led in a cult?
No. Have you ever been in a cult? There's got to be cults in Alabama somewhere.
Dude, you're running a cult right now on Patreon. How do you not fucking know this?
Well, maybe I should just put a jewel on my head the next time I do a live chat.
You put one in your belly button 3 weeks ago.
I did not.
What's the difference?
New World Order and the Crow, Thunder Russo, Arquette Champ, Vinnie Mac, simulcast. Tony's back with Conrad, not your classy podcast. Watch along, try not to laugh. Lowest rules, cat back. This wasn't the initial plan. Tom Zig's a good-looking man. Klondike Bill, make a chant. Tommy,